Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using Sleeper. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end flex, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. But before we can get on into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using Sleeper, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you guys would like access to my PPR and half PPR rankings and cheat sheet, they're available in the Patreon, link in the video description or in the pinned comment for $7.50. So without further ado, let's get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot. So the draft begins here with CeeDee Lamb, followed by Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, and Bijan Robinson. So Christian McCaffrey does not go number 1 overall. Obviously, people are somewhat worried about the injury. Personally, I'm not panicking all that much. I think he will end up returning to practice this coming week prior to the season starting, so I'm not really panicking all that much. Now, obviously, if you guys are doing your fantasy football draft, say, come Labor Day, and he still is yet to step foot on the practice field, then I would start to panic a little bit, but at the 1.03, I would be absolutely ecstatic to get Christian McCaffrey. Jamar Chase goes ahead of McCaffrey. Jamar Chase has seemingly ended the holdout, which is great to see if you are a Jamar Chase drafter who might have been panicking a little bit if you already did your draft. So we're up here at the 1.10. This was a pretty normal first 9 picks of a draft. Now, obviously, the order was a little bit out of whack, in my opinion, but typically those are the top 9 guys off of the board in some order. So we're looking right now, best players available would be Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyren Williams, and Puka Nacua. So we're to go ahead and get a wide receiver and running back combo at the 10 pick. Now, if this was a triple wide receiver league or even a 2 flex league, I am probably still going to do the exact same thing because I believe the running backs in this range have top 3 upside, and I believe the wide receivers in this range also have top 3 upside. So looking at wide receiver first, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. To me, the pick would be between Wilson, Harrison, and Puka Nacua. Ultimately, knowing that Garrett Wilson is fully healthy, I'm going to lean with Garrett Wilson. I know a lot of people out there are nervous to draft Garrett Wilson because he's never really been ultra productive at the NFL level. But what I will tell you is, in my opinion, as long as Aaron Rodgers is just 60-70% of his old self, he will be able to elevate Garrett Wilson to superstardom. Garrett Wilson is the clear, undisputed wide receiver 1 in this offense. He had solid games in the past with the MILF hunter Zach Wilson, with Trevor Siemian, but I believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to fully unlock that upside. A couple of days ago in training camp, we saw clips of Garrett Wilson absolutely pantsing defenses. I believe that Garrett Wilson is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, and there are a lot of leagues where you can get him even in a 12-team league inside of the 2nd round. And if he fell to me right there, I would be absolutely ecstatic, and I'm fine taking him inside of the top 10 as well. Now we are going to go running back, and this is also a discussion to be had. Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor. As of right now, I have them ranked Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley, but they are all very, very close in my rankings. The most recent news blurb about Jahmyr Gibbs is that he is in line to practice next week. We believe he will be good to go by next week, which is very promising. Now, obviously, anytime you draft a player that has a hamstring injury, obviously that's a little bit scary, right? Because we know the hamstring injuries could linger. They could come back and bite the guy in the ass, and then you end up missing multiple games throughout the season. But I am willing to take that risk in this scenario in the 2nd round on a guy with the skill set of Jahmyr Gibbs. I love Jahmyr Gibbs this season. I think he has running back number 1 upside. I fully understand that he's not a workhorse running back like Bijan, Breece, Christian McCaffrey, even like Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley, because David Montgomery is going to get used. But when push comes to shove, we know that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be seeing more more touches in his second season, and he was already great last season without all of the touches. The second year is typically when running backs ascend in the NFL level. Jahmyr Gibbs coming into his second year, the upside is incredible. He's going to catch all the passes because David Montgomery has feet for hands, so I'm very excited about Jahmyr Gibbs this season. And if you wanted to go with Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley above him, though, I wouldn't argue too much with you. If I did want to go wide receiver there, I would have paired Garrett Wilson with Puka Nacua at the 1-2 turn if you're in the back of the first round. So if you're pick 8, 9, or 10, I am not going to consider taking a quarterback or a tight end on that swing with my first 2 picks because I believe it is a reach. You can get a lot of the time, potentially a tight end falling your way in a 10-team league in the third round, so I wouldn't really look to reach on it. I feel like it is a huge reach compared to the talent at running back and wide receiver that are available. So after Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Drizzy Drake London, Chris Olave. The third round opens with Mr. Swift, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, Devon A. Chan, Sam Laporta, Patrick Mahomes, and Nico Collins. Now, something we didn't mention off the rip is in 10-team drafts, I do view the quarterback and the tight end position in a much higher regard when you're comparing it to a 12 or a 14-team league. Especially in a 10-team league like this, where you're not starting 3 wide receivers or multiple flexes. This is a very vanilla, missionary-style draft format where it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, and defense. So the onesie positions obviously hold a lot more value in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying to reach in the second round like we were talking about, get the elite quarterback, the elite tight end, but I am a lot more comfortable leaving the third and fourth round with just 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, my quarterback, and my tight end. Now, I won't do it every single time, but I just want to make it known that the quarterback, the tight end position are a lot more important because in 10-team leagues, basically every team is going to be loaded to the gills with talent. Basically, every single team is going to have elite running backs, great wide receivers, but the way, even great flexes, but the way that you get the jump up on those opponents is by having the elite quarterback and the elite tight end. So looking right now at wide receiver, we've got guys like Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp. At running back, it would be Rashad White, James Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara. If you wanted a running back here, it would be very clearly James Cook, in my opinion. If you wanted a wide receiver, it would be between Evans, Waddle, DJ Moore, and Cooper Kupp. But here, we're going to stick with our guns and go quarterback, definitely, or tight end here, and potentially even both. Looking at tight end, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride. Now, there is an off chance that Mark Andrews or Trey McBride could fall back to us in the 5th round, but again, that is kind of wishful thinking, though it is likely we could end up getting a Dalton Kincaid, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts type. So I think I would rather take my shot at the quarterback position here if we were just going to go with 1, because I think there's a lot more falling value at the tight end position. And then once you kind of get past the Anthony Richardsons, to me, it kind of feels like Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. They're all kind of in the same range for me. So I would definitely like to get that elite quarterback here. And we're going to go with Jalen Hurts. Now, I did make a video earlier today. If you guys haven't seen it, 10 players that will win you your league. Jahmyr Gibbs was a part of that, as was Lamar Jackson. But if you're going to allow me to get Jalen Hurts here as the quarterback number 3, I'm taking that every single time and twice on Sunday. Jalen Hurts, to me, is the quarterback number 1 in fantasy football. He has insane rushing upside, game in and game out. He's got A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, now Jahan Dotson. I get Jahan Dotson is not some elite wide receiver, right? It's not like they added prime Julio Jones to their team or something like that, but Jahan Dotson is a solid real-life addition, not too much to the fantasy football relevance of Jahan Dotson. It's not like now he's some super hot commodity, so we're going to go with Jalen Hurts here. And then I think we're going to end up going with either a wide receiver or running back. Now, what I will tell you is the wide receivers in the 5th, the 6th, the 7th round, a lot of the times are sweet spots at the wide receiver position for me, whereas the running back position starts to really feel dehydrated. They are gasping for air like SpongeBob in that one episode where he's trying not to breathe and he's chilling with Sandy. If anyone, he needs the water. If you know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know. If you're not a SpongeBob guy or gal, that's okay. So we're going to end up going running back here, and we're going to get James Cook. I love James Cook this season. The only reason why he hasn't really been successful in a huge way in his career is because he's been iced out of the end zone. Shout out Elsa, but I do think in 2024, I want to see him get a lot more touchdowns. He was heavily involved towards the end of last season with the offensive coordinator change. Same offensive coordinator going into 2024. I understand that the Bills losing Stephon Diggs is definitely a relatively large blow, but I do not believe it is a crazy blow. Shout out Tony Montana style, right? I really think that it's going to end up being, sure, they won't be as good. As a Dolphins fan, I don't like the Bills, but I'll tell you that I still think with the guys they got, they'll be competitive. James Cook will have tons of opportunities to score touchdowns, and I also just don't think that Josh Allen's going to score 15 touchdowns again. After Mr. Cook, we see Stephon Diggs, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Rashad with 2A's, White, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, CJ Stroud, Trey McBride, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Malik Neighbors, Michael Pittman, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, and Tank Dell. Back up on the clock here, and just as we prophesized, the tight ends would fall to us. Now, we weren't able to get the McBride, the Andrews, guys that are very clearly top 4 tight ends, in my opinion, with Kelsey and Sam Laporta, but we are going to be able to get a solid range at tight end. To me, it's a guessing game between Kincaid and Kyle Pitts. I'm fine drafting George Kittle, but I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Kittle is going to either score you 3 fantasy points, or he is going to beat the ever-living shit out of your opponent. He's going to hit him with the left hand of Alex Poatan Pereira, the right hand of Mike Tyson. They're going to get kicked in the face, Heartbreak Kid style. So I really like Kittle. He's a fun guy. He's funny out there. The clips of him are all funny. He's an excellent blocker, but because he's so proficient in blocking, he's laying out pancakes like he works at Denny's. George Kittle becomes a guy that is kind of almost an afterthought to me, not because he's a shit player, but because the situation is so loaded around him. Now, if Ayuk gets traded, which still seems kind of up in the air at this point, I would like Kittle a lot more. And Kittle's still a fine pick, but he's definitely much more risky weekly, whereas I feel like Kincaid and Pitts are going to be a lot more consistent. We will go ahead and draft Pitts in this draft. I think the Buffalo Bills are a team that you are fine drafting multiple players on, but in the sense of diversifying our team, not going all in on one offense this early on, we're going to go ahead and go with Kyle Pitts. But if you wanted to draft Dalton Kincaid or even George Kittle, I wouldn't really hound you. Again, I don't love George Kittle in this range, but I still think he's a super high upside piece weekly. That could be the reason in week 17 in your fantasy football championship, when you're playing up against Steve, the dude you work with, or you're playing up against Janice from accounting, or one of your high school buddies, or maybe your aunt or your uncle, right? And maybe he's the reason why you beat them down in that game and win you your championship belt. So now we're either going, pretty clear, we're going wide receiver here. I don't really think you should be going triple running back super early. Now, could it work? Yes, right? If you realistically draft Gibbs and Cook, right, and those two end up as top 5 running backs, you match that with Mixon, right? And then Mixon is the running back 8. So you have 3 top 12 running backs. Of course, that is crazy value. But this is a full PPR league where we could be starting 3 wide receivers at all times. We only have 1 wide receiver on the squad thus far because our team is Jalen Hurts, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Garrett Wilson, and Kyle Pitts. So we're going to go ahead and go wide receiver here. Now, Devontae Smith is a guy that I've kind of started to like a little bit more because of the Kellen Moore system. They should be throwing the ball a little bit more. Now, Jalen Hurts still going to get his. Saquon Barkley, Saquon still going to get his as well. But I am kind of keening in a little bit more on Devontae Smith. I'm I'm not going to say that I love Devontae Smith. I'm going to sit here and give him the Gawk 9000 special, but I do certainly like him a little bit more than I did a couple of months ago. Devontae Smith had a huge down season last year, definitely did not live up to my expectations, as well as the expectations of many out there, but I do think that Devontae Smith on the Eagles, one of the best offenses in the NFL, as my wide receiver 2, feels great, and matching him with Jalen Hurts is ultimately what made my decision there. If you wanted to go with Cooper or Flowers or Pickens ahead of him, I wouldn't really call you all that crazy, but what I will tell you is getting that stack is something that I do look for in drafts. Now, it's not something that I am laser-eyed focused on, right? I'm not entering into my draft thinking I need to get a stack of this team, and I need to stack my quarterback with my wide receiver or my tight end. It's just added upside weekly, right? It is less bets on my team, right? I'm starting every single week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, and then the kicker and the defense, right? So now 2 bets are intertwined. Hurts has a big game. Technically, Smith doesn't have to have a great game, right? Because Hurts can run. He can throw it to A.J. Brown. But if Devontae Smith has a huge game, so is Jalen Hurts. You are getting essentially double points like you're playing Call of Duty Zombies. Shout out to World at War. So I really like doing that. Again, it's not a must. You don't have to do it. To some people, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, right? Because if Hurts shits the bed, Smith shits the bed, and it's no bueno for you, but I like the added upside. So after we went with Devontae Smith, Joe Mixon, Dalton Kincaid, George Pickens, Anthony Richardson, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Joe Shiesty, Dak Prescott, George Kittle, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Kyler Murray, Zamir White, and Christian Kirk. Now we're up in the 7th round, and we take this guy all the time, but I'm going to take him again. His ADP should continue to move. But if you're drafting this weekend or you're drafting early in the week, his ADP might not even move enough by Labor Day. That's Rashee Rice. Now, I get Rashee Rice. On paper, he could still get suspended. I'll say that. I'll be honest, he could still get suspended. But more than likely, he won't. We've talked about this a million times. I'm not a lawyer. I am not Saul Goodman. But what I will tell you is that how the NFL works is typically they don't throw the book at you without the court date happening. The court date is not until, I believe, December 3rd, early on in December. They let the legal process pay out, and then they throw the book at you. Doesn't seem like that's going to end up happening this season. We've seen it with Kamara in the past, other guys where the suspension that you think the NFL is going to rain hell onto you, they end up waiting. And Rashee Rice at this pick is a absolute no-brainer. If he wasn't there, though, Jaden Riley-Reed, Chris Godwin would have probably been my pick. I've seen a lot of hype about Jalen McMillan. I think Jalen McMillan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is an amazing pick in best ball. I've been taking him a bunch late in drafts on Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description. I love his upside there as the wide receiver 3 in Tampa. There's been talks about how maybe he's going to be able to overtake Chris Godwin. I don't really think that's going to happen, but maybe it does. We already got Rashee Rice, so we're not going to go double on the Kansas City Chiefs. We got our quarterback, and we got our tight end. So when you draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round, the 6th round, I'm not taking another quarterback. When I draft a tight end as early as we drafted Kyle Pitts at the 5.10, I am not going to take another tight end. Obviously, if there's an injury or a bye week, you got to figure things out, but we're not going to just triple wrap condoms over our teams. Anyone that has never used a condom before, it's okay. Doubling, tripling up doesn't work, so just use one in reality, but it's more of a expression, right? You don't need to fucking wrap your team up in bubble wrap, put a helmet on, right? You don't need to get that nervous, but I will tell you that I am never, even most of the time when I'm waiting on quarterback and tight end, I'm never taking 2 anyways. I'm just going to figure it out. Fuck it, we do it live. So it's either running back or wide receiver here. We put 1st round draft capital into our receiver Garrett Wilson, 2nd round into Gibbs, but Gibbs is essentially a 1st round pick. So James Cook and him, to me, are a fine tandem, a great tandem, I might add. The greatest tandem, let me tell you. But we got Wilson, Smith, Rice. Great wide receiver tandem. So it's kind of just all about how I feel the running backs are in this range. Now, if I didn't draft Jahmyr Gibbs, I would be happy to draft David Montgomery here, but we're not going to handcuff our 2nd round pick in the 8th round. I think that's a little bit fucking stupid. Maybe you guys don't, but I think it is. So we're just going to go wide receiver here and see how the running backs are when things come back. Now, the safest pick here would probably be Godwin or Reed. But we're going to go for upside, right? We already have Wilson, Smith, Rice, a great trio. Great trio at the wide receiver position. So we're going to go for more upside, and that's Rome Odunze. Now, Rome Odunze is not the safest of picks, right? Because there's a chance that Keenan Allen's that guy. He runs the clock back. He's amazing, despite him getting a little bit older. He was great last season. Maybe Rome Odunze is not able to overtake him in his rookie season. I think he will be able to, but that's the downside argument for him. Rome Odunze's tape out of college is amazing, fantastic to watch. Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams, I believe, will continue to develop a connection, and I believe by about halfway into the season, Rome Odunze will be the number 2 target running in the 2 wide receiver sets with DJ Moore. DJ Moore to me is the clear number 1, and I think Odunze will become number 2. And there's also the talk about how Keenan Allen's getting fat. Shout out Albert, getting a little bit chunky, which is okay. We all do that around football season. But, again, I'm not going to fat shame him here, but what I'm going to tell you is he's looking a little bit slower. Again, I don't want to overblow this narrative, but he's looking a little bit big, looking a little plump, looking a little slow. In my opinion, again, maybe I'm overreacting, but I've never really been on Keenan Allen this season, and that's coming from one of the number 1 Keenan Allen Glazers. I'm a D1 Hall of Fame Glazer, 5-star Glazer for Keenan Allen over the last couple of years. If you're new to the channel, you didn't know that, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Whether you are new to the channel or not, hit that like button. Helps me out a ton. If you want the rankings, check out the Patreon. So after Rome Odunze, David Montgomery, Jaden Riley Reed, Ramondre Stevenson, Evan Ingram, Xavier Worthy, Raheem Mostert, Najee Harris, Calvin Ridley. Then we see Jordan Addison, Tony Pollard, Chris Godwin, Jonathan Brooks, Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, Eckler, Chubb, Moss, Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet. So we're back up on the clock here. We got a fearsome foursome at the wide receiver position. Just 2 running backs, so now we're going to go back to the running back train. Javonte Williams is very clearly the pick here. I think he's the clear lead back in Denver. The Denver Broncos are an amazing offense to be in for a running back. Now, are they an amazing team? No, but because of how Sean McVay kind of just churns these running backs out. Javonte Williams will have a productive year. He was fed the rock last year coming off of a serious injury. Now another year off the serious injury should look a lot more just explosive back to his old self, because last season he did not look good at all. He was getting mauled behind the offensive line. He was getting the ball, and then he was coming out at snail's pace, not really running like normal Javonte Williams. Now, I would definitely argue that Javonte Williams has not lived up to his draft stock, the amount that people were just loving Javonte Williams being included out of the NFL draft once he was a prospect, but I digress. In the 9th round, clear lead back in Denver, pass catching upside. In a PPR league is my running back 3. I'm taking that every single time. So we're back up on the board here. The wide receivers continue to be kind of deep. Now, there is to me a fall off after the Coleman, the Johnson, JSN, Watson, Brian Thomas. At running back, kind of feels a little bit similar. Now, if Jaylen Warren was fully healthy, I'd take him here every time, but he's not healthy. Could miss the first couple of weeks. Again, that's a could. Not a guarantee, so don't take that as the fucking the truth, right? That he's 100% going to miss week 1, week 2, week 3, but there's potential of that. Running backs should be fine when things come back, but we know how these drafts go. People love the running backs. They start to panic that they don't have their running back. So we're going to go ahead here and take... You know what? We're deep enough at running back that I'm willing to take Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren's a guy that, to me, is better than Najee Harris. He just frankly is. But with the injury, that could hold him back a couple of weeks. But it's not like we're starting him on our team. He's our running back number 4. So we're not really relying on him. If he ends up having a shit season, we could just cut him. But if he comes back and looks like his old self, and, again, I don't really like Arthur Smith, but maybe Arthur Smith is a better offensive coordinator than head coach. That's kind of the narrative on him. So I'm fine drafting Jaylen Warren there. After Jaylen Warren, David Njoku, DeAndre Hopkins, Keon Coleman, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears, Brian Thomas Jr., Hollywood Brown. So we were wrong. I thought a bunch of running backs would grow. We'd be able to get a solid wide receiver. That just wasn't the case. Deontay Johnson, Brock Purdy, Jake Ferguson, Caleb Williams, JSN, Dallas Goedert, Tua Tagovailoa, Dalton Schultz, Jaden Stormy Daniels, Christian Watson, and the Goffinator, Jared Goff. So here we're just going to be taking upside shots at wide receiver. We already got our core three, our big three. Shout out LeBron, Wade, and Bosch. So we're going to go with high upside shots. First, we're going to take our shot on Jameson Williams of the Lions. Hadn't done diddly squat so far in the NFL, but now with a full offseason with the team, with Goff, there's a lot more connection to be had there. I think things will be a lot better. And then again, we're going to take an upside shot, and we're going to draft Dobbs, who seems to have a really good connection with Jordan Love. Jordan Love seems to love his receiving ability in terms of the red zone. In the red zone, he's a big target. Jordan Love has talked him up in the offseason. Jordan Love, I think, is a very underrated player because a lot of people love to kind of dig a grave for him. They say, oh my God, he had just one great season. He's not going to be able to do it again. I love Jordan Love, and I think Romeo Doubs is a great late round pick. Again, I would have Watson, Reed ranked way ahead of him, but Dobbs is a guy that I found myself taking late due to the upside. Then we're to close things out with a running back, then go with our kicker and defense. After Romeo Doubs, Blake Corum, Brian Robinson Jr., Tyler Hawkinson. His name is TJ Hawkinson. Ezekiel Elliott, Trey, Freddie Benson, Cortland Sutton, Gus Edwards, Chase Brown, Justin Tucker, the fucker, Curtis Samuel, Jerome Ford, F-150, Tyler Lockett, Justin Herbert, Freiermuth, Aubrey, Butker, McPherson, Cole Kmet. We're back up on the clock here, and we are going to go with a running back. And I'm starting to kind of feel like I want to take Jalen Wright in drafts. That's more of like a 12-team league maneuver. Like, again, when you can get Dobbins, who could be the clear lead back on the Chargers, when you can get Dowdle, who could be the clear lead back on Dallas, I'm going to take them a million times over Wright. And again, because it's a 10-team league, it's a lot easier to get these falling values like Rico Dowdle, who again could be the starting running back on the Baltimore Ravens in just a couple of weeks. So now we're back up on the clock here. We are going to go with our kicker first because I feel as though I'm going to be able to find great value at the defense position. So we're going to go with Kyami Fairbairn. A lot of people that I trust, a lot of people are saying that Kyami Fairbairn could be the kicker number one. So I'm going to rock with that. I do like the Houston Texans a lot, and Fairbairn's a great kicker, so it makes sense. After Fairbairn, the Niners, Lawrence, Khalil, Shakira. Oh, baby, when you talk like that. Aaron Rodgers, my old bitch lame, but my young ho cool. Cameron Dicker, the kicker. Jets, Elliott, Mitchell, bunch of defenses, bunch of kickers. And the way you're going to draft the defense is by drafting your defense based upon their week 1 matchup. 2 don't matter. Week 3 don't matter. Week 4 don't matter. Week 5 don't matter. Ideally, you got a defense that's great in week 1 and week 2, but not every defense has that schedule. So the reason why you do this is because you might like a certain defense. You might love the Ravens, but guess what? The Ravens in week number 1 are going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. You might love the Chiefs defense, but guess what? They're going up against the Baltimore Ravens in week number 1. You want to be getting that edge up on your opponents every single week. And these, even in 12, 14 team leagues, you want as much edge as possible. So I'm going to be drafting my defense based upon their week 1 matchup. The Seahawks are one of my favorites. They go up against the Denver Broncos. Then they play the Patriots. And after that, they play the Dolphins, the Lions. So you're going to drop them like it's hot. You can pick them back up in week 5 up against the Giants. Are the Seahawks one of the best defenses in the NFL? Of course not. But due to their first 2 matchups, makes them an ideal defense to draft in 2024 fantasy football. And I made a defenses the draft video a couple of days ago, so make sure you guys check that out. If you haven't seen them already, it goes even further in depth into the thought process of streaming defenses weekly, and I do post videos every single week on defenses to stream throughout the season. So to recap the squad, we got Jalen Hurts, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Kyle Pitts, Rashee Rice, Kyami Fairbairn, Seattle Seahawks defense, Roma Dunze, Javonte Williams, Jalen Warren, Jameson Williams, Romeo Doubs, and Rico Dowdle. You might just get hit with Rico McMillan. So if I drafted this team in my at-home league, I would be absolutely bricked up. I love this team. I'm going to turn my camera off shortly just for a couple of seconds. So if you guys want to pause the video right now, you want to see the whole draft board, you want to take it in, you can go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to zoom out slightly so you guys can see the full draft board. I appreciate all of the support we have seen as of recently. It has meant the world to me. The subscribers are growing at a rapid rate. The amount of likes, the amount of support in the comment section means so much to me. I love you guys all so much. I'm going to do the electric slide with myself so you can see my team while I'm talking here. I love you guys all so much. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your guys' day. And make sure you guys check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I got my home league draft tonight. I'm going to knock that out of the park. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. Again, check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen already. Hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Hit that like button. Check out the Patreon link in the video description if you want my PPR or half PPR rankings. And I give out advice on there all the time. If you ask me a question, I always answer. Love you guys all so much. Have a great one. As always, good boy.